Hey, sweeties. So I'm knocking out my farming early instead of late as fuck. Um, we have just a few little dailies to do. Nothing crazy. So I'm gonna. Oh, geez, both of these suck. Ugh. Wish I had re-rolled them last night. I didn't remember to do that. Because I'm a silly goose. Anyway, let's keep listening to TGS and slaying.
And it drives inequality, which causes
Let me rewind it a
that
bit.
will drive more and more. Single action we make every day, every single purchase we make every day has a footprint on the world, which means every action we take has the potential to have a positive footprint. I think the real challenge that we have to get our heads around is how to enjoy the process. Somehow,
Oops.
climate action and biodiversity action needs to stop being a chore, it needs to be an opportunity. The anxiety is completely natural, but it only drives inaction. But if we can wake up in the morning and feel thrilled to buy that vegetarian burger instead of the meat burger, or excited to buy our coffee from Desta's coffee farm rather than Starbucks, we're going to build a feedback loop of positivity that will drive more and more positive action.
And how do you, as a professor that you teach, in addition to your research, you obviously have had students over the years. What sort of advice do you give to young humans, 18 to 25, who are learning about all the hurdles that we face?
So, what I'm trying to get across is
Damn.
the environmental crisis that we're facing is not a result of bad people making intentionally bad decisions. I truly believe this. I do believe on the planet that every single person is making the best decisions they can given the context of understanding that they have. The problem that we're facing is an economic system that undervalues nature, that undervalues the system that we depend on. It values parts that build their own positive feedback loops at the expense of the system that we depend on. And it drives inequality, which causes mass degradation. So fighting the environmental crisis doesn't necessarily require hate and aggression. It requires that we find the solutions to distribute wealth towards those local people who are the people protecting nature. And this sounds like a wishy-washy thing, but there are so many financial mechanisms to do it. Debt cancellation, cash transfer programs, payment for ecosystem service programs, even things like wealth distribution mechanisms like universal basic income. Things like this have the potential, I'm not saying they will, but they have the potential to drive massive ecological recovery at the same time as lifting people out of poverty.
What do you care most about in the world, Tom?
Honestly, the beauty of wilderness and the biodiversity that supports it. I just feel overwhelming pain and agony when I see ecosystems being lost and when I see the animals being displaced, and everything I want in the world is to stop this destruction.
Well, if you had a magic wand and there was no personal recourse to you, what is one thing you would do to improve human and planetary futures?
Other than flamethrowers on the backs of all the wild animals to protect themselves. Again, this is probably going to sound like a very wishy-washy answer, but having come back from a meditation retreat with you, I would say I would like everyone on the planet to be able to come together into a mindfulness meditation retreat and actually experience the spectacle of our interconnected beings, the spectacle of our awareness together. And I swear 99% of our antagonism would diffuse into a system where we have more empathy.
I'm not sure 99%, but I think a lot of it would. And much more to say on that topic in the future. It was a big shift in awareness, wide boundary awareness. So if you were to come back on this show in 6 months or a year, you are kind of an ecological polymath of sorts. What is one topic that we didn't discuss today that is relevant to human and planetary futures that you would be willing to take a deep dive in because you're passionate about it?
So the topic that I'm allocating all my energy to in the coming months, I'm calling it nature's limits. So if you imagine, when the EU announced their EU restoration law, farmers were marching in the streets saying, no, don't protect more nature, we need our agriculture to be safe. As an ecologist, I completely empathize with that perspective, but I must tell you, it's driven by
I
a
need to boost this
misconception
audio.
of
I can't
nature.
hear shit.
We need nature so that we can have agriculture. So there's a gradient of degradation. If you go from a fully intact ecosystem, you need to remove some nature to get forests, to get agriculture. But once you've removed enough, that line will start dipping in the other direction. And we can now calculate the tipping point for every single country on the planet. And we can say exactly when you start depleting nature and it will start depleting your agricultural yields. And if we can calculate that exactly, we can then have the data to show those farmers and the policymakers exactly how much more nature you need to get on your country so that you can maximize your agricultural outputs. Because there's no way we'll have agriculture in a world where we don't have nature. We fundamentally need to find the balance between the two.
Let's do that. That sounds fascinating. Thank you for your time and your important work in the world. Do you have any closing comments for our viewers, Tom Crowther?
I think we've covered almost everything other than just get out in nature and love it. That's the only way to do it.
Thanks so much, Tom. To be continued.
Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed or learned from this episode of The Great Simplification, please follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also visit thegreatsimplification.com for references and show notes from today's conversation. And to connect with fellow listeners of this podcast, check out our Discord channel.
Damn. Ooh, yikes. Alright, so that wraps that episode up. I saw that same speaker has a bunch of TED Talks. So I'm going to... Whoa! Damn, this map is so neat. I saw, yeah, there were a bunch of TED Talks, and so I'm gonna queue one of those up next. Ooh, a vehicle. Damn. Their team is not very good. I feel like this match is going to be over very quickly. Which is good, actually. Case in point. Woo. Here, let's let him come in. What the fuck are they doing? Dude, they suck. It's like another level of suckery. I can't aim down. Sucks. Damn.
Come on, boys. There's just one control point left.
Oh, don't crash. Come on, bruh. Oh, he's not crashing. Hell yeah. Alright, let's get him. What is he doing? He's losing his wing. He's fucking toast, hell yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to queue up a TED Talk. That would have been a good time to do that while I was just flying straight. What's this guy doing? I guess he's resupplying. Yeah, looks like it. Okay. Oh, he's making it so easy for me. What a sweetie. Oh, what a cutie. Oh, adorable. Woohoo. Yeah.
Получай!
Oh man, I ran way too far back. Alright. So next up we've got one of his TED Talks from 5 years ago. Nature-based solutions in the fight against climate change. Check that out.
Life is all about embracing the challenge. Every day, our lab brings together some of the world's leading environmental scientists, bringing together all that brain power to desperately try to figure out how to get this ball around a group of people without using our hands. It's so good. You hold the ball on the frisbee, you throw the ball in the air, throw the frisbee to the next person, who catches the frisbee and then catches the ball without ever touching their hands. This challenge is unbelievable. For the very simple reason
It's a very
that
quiet
it's
video.
really, really hard. The failures can be catastrophic. But when you get lost in that game and it just takes you, it's unbelievable how those failures just pale in comparison to the true glory of success.
Hold on.
But when you get a simple reason that it's ball is unbelievably addictive, for the very simple reason that it's really, really hard. The failures can be catastrophic. But when you get lost in that game and it just takes you, it's unbelievable how those failures just pale in comparison to the true glory of success. I always thought this obsession with games was why I struggled in university. And when I was kicked out of class at the end of my first year, I thought it was the end of my degree. 300 people I had to walk out in front of. It was devastating. But the professor took me aside and asked me simply why bother. Why bother with ecology if you're not even going to try? To which I explained, I've always been obsessed with biodiversity. How life arose on this planet remains the greatest mystery, let alone how it diversified across the globe. But I simply cannot keep up. It's really hard to stay motivated when you can't keep up. And on top of that, I'm dyslexic. And so I've failed to keep up with the boring reading and instead preferred to play games with my friends. And he gave me the simplest bit of advice ever. He just said, if you truly enjoy it, why not make ecology your next game? And I know it sounds so simple, but it had the most profound impact on me. He said, you don't need to try harder, you certainly don't need to be smarter. But if you embrace the challenge, not only are you way more likely to succeed, but even if you don't, who actually cares? You've been having a good time anyway. And that's the point of all of this in the long run anyway. Now that simple advice had the most profound impact on me. And 8 years later, I'm still studying biodiversity. This time at a global scale. Woo. And in fact, I'm studying one of the greatest threats facing biodiversity of all time, in climate change. This depressing topic that every single person in this room knows plenty about, so don't worry, I won't bog you down with the depressing details. We all know how threatening it is to us and our future generations. But the real challenge is figuring out how that we can get engaged. How can we make tangible impacts to slow the rate of this devastating threat? Because the atmosphere that we're trying to protect is incredibly thin and vulnerable. It's like analogous to the width of the rubber on a balloon. And every year, we emit 10 gigatons of carbon into that space. I know a gigaton is a weird number, but essentially it's 1 billion tons of carbon. So 10 gigatons is like 27,000 Empire State Buildings. And some of it goes into the land, and some of it goes into the ocean, but a large chunk of it remains in the atmosphere and it's building up year on, year out, to the extent that we've increased the burden by about 300 gigatons since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Now I'm a scientist, so I love numbers, and I'm going to be throwing a load of big nonsense numbers at you, but if I could get you to remember at least one number, it's that 300 gigatons, because that's the scale of the problem we need to address. So of course, we urgently need technological solutions to stop those 10 gigatons every year. We need to prevent emissions.
Oh, come on.
But if we want to capture the 300 gigatons that already exist, we're going to need an immensely powerful system. And the most powerful system we've got to date is this, the natural system. This is a beautiful NASA simulation of the carbon cycle, showing high concentrations of carbon dioxide indicated by red at the beginning of the year. But as we tick on into spring and then summer, we'll see these concentrations fade. And that's caused by one really simple thing. It's just the emergence of leaves on trees. This simple ecological process transforms the carbon cycle every year. And it's one of several massive ecological fluxes that entirely balance one another out. Given the massive scale of this system, managing it effectively has to be one of our brightest options in the fight against climate change.
Ow, I still can't.
But it's also the nonsense one. We've all heard it before, the happy clappy solution, plant a tree, save the world. We've all heard it before, but it's clearly not worked, because otherwise we'd be fine. But the real reason is we've not been able to get engaged, because it's not a tangible and scientific solution for the very simple fact that we have no idea what's physically possible. Until we know what we can achieve, who's going to waste their time and energy restoring ecosystems if you don't know what the impact will be? If we look at the top climate change solutions, Project Drawdown is a brilliant organization listing them. At the top of the list, with the potential to save 24 gigatons, is effective refrigeration management. But if you look down the list for global ecosystem management, you won't even find it, because ecosystems, we have no idea of their global potential. So they're broken up into smaller parts and listed far below the top solutions. Again, who of us is going to spend our valuable time and energy in this unless we know what we can actually achieve? Well, the real challenge is that the Earth's massive. It's really difficult to get a handle on that global information. So we've used satellites very well for the last few decades, which have great global coverage, but they can't see below the canopy surface. So until recently, we thought there was about 400 billion trees on the planet. And that was the basis of the UN's Billion Tree campaign, to plant 1 billion trees to save the world. But we knew we needed a new generation of model, a model built from millions of locations where people have stood on the ground counting trees. and estimating how big those trees are, and also which species they are. And once you've got all that information, you've got insights into the forest structure. And by
this'll be
pairing
crazy.
all those millions of data points together using machine learning and artificial intelligence, we can now start to fill in the gaps and see the patterns in tree density and how they vary across gradients of temperature and moisture and soil characteristics, to generate the first quantitative understanding of global tree density, revealing quite simply that there are over 3 trillion trees on our planet. Now again, I realize it's hard to understand what a trillion is, but essentially it's way more than we previously thought. And that simple piece of information was enough to change the billion tree campaign into the trillion tree campaign. So now we're restoring 1 trillion trees, and it's having great impact. But because we know the size of all those trees, we also know that they store about 450 gigatons of carbon. That's the basis we're working with. But these models don't just tell us where trees are now. By characterizing the environment that can support trees, they also help us to see where trees can exist on the planet, showing that there's room for vastly more than we currently have.
The enemy took the control point.
But obviously, much of this land is currently covered by forest, and a large proportion of it we need for urban land and agricultural land that we need to support a growing human population. But when we remove those lands, we are left with something incredible. These are the 0.9 billion hectares of degraded
bitch.
places where trees could naturally exist, but they don't, even though we're not using them extensively. If we were to restore ecosystems across all of those lands, there would be an additional 1 trillion trees in that area, and they would store a staggering 205 gigatons of carbon. Now again, there's a lot of uncertainty in that number.
Damn.
It could be slightly higher or lower, but the scale of this, when you compare it to the 300 gigatons I mentioned earlier, we can all see that there is a vastly and immensely powerful carbon drawdown solution in the world's forests. And obviously it would take over 100 years to accumulate all of that carbon, but as soon as those trees are in the ground, not only are they sucking up carbon, but they're also producing clouds, and those clouds reflect a lot of the sun's energy away, cooling the planet with an immediate effect. So when we announced this information less than 2 months ago, something just clicked, and it went absolutely viral. There was not an international media organization that didn't cover this extensively. It was like the public finally just saw an option for us to get engaged. And it was followed by an unbelievable spike in funding for restoration projects. And we saw projects dotting up all over the world. And these are just the few that our lab is directly connected to. We're aware of thousands of others that are emerging to restore ecosystems to capture carbon. But it also introduced us to some of the wonders of social media, which was a terrifying insight. We had an absolute insanity of messages, but when you sift through those messages, there's some really important and valuable themes. The first criticism: this is so stupid, we can't just plant trees everywhere, we need emissions cuts. While I don't entirely love the introduction to it, this is absolutely correct. I can't argue with that. Of course, everybody must know that we need technological and system-level changes to prevent emissions. But that has to be done in combination with powerful carbon drawdown. Climate change is way too big for us to be squabbling over solutions. We need all of them right now. The second criticism: no, we need to conserve existing forests. Once again, it's very hard to disagree because this is absolutely correct. Of course,
he's going quick.
Increasing the global forest cover wouldn't make any sense if we just gained new forests at the expense of the old ones. But preserving those existing forests is central to our entire goal. Of course, it's absolutely critical, so they must be done in combination. And the third criticism, you can see a trend now, is that we need to preserve and restore natural grasslands and savannas. And once again, obviously, for fear of repeating myself, this is abundantly correct. These ecosystems are immensely important. And that was part of the reason for us doing this study in the first place, so that we could identify where trees should go and where they shouldn't. Because those ecosystems are really key as well.
He's up there.
They store huge amounts of biodiversity, and their carbon is amazing too. But it's not stored in the vegetation.
Is he gonna crash?
It's actually stored in the soil below our feet. So we've been building a new generation of models now. Instead of basing them on observations of trees, they're based on millions of soil samples collected all across the globe. And again, using the same artificial intelligence and machine learning, we can start to see the pattern.
revealing that there's over 1,500
bitch.
gigatons of carbon in the soil that are off, with the majority of it existing in the high latitude areas where
Oh, we're
cold
fucked.
conditions
I can't
trap up
turn.
carbon in the soil. And the amazing thing is that if we restored those soils across the globe, we could capture another 116 gigatons of carbon. That's the second insanely powerful carbon drawdown solution that I've introduced to you. And that's just in the soil below our feet. And this
Dude, it's
spans
a
across
little
all
too
the
fast for
ecosystems.
me.
Where forests are now, just conserving and preserving
Holy
them
shit, he's
to
just
capture
zipping
30%
around.
of that. But grasslands and shrublands cover an even larger expanse, and they could capture a staggering
kind of plane is
41%
that, man?
of that
Oh, hey.
potential if we just restore them effectively. And the nice thing about them is that they don't come at the expense of any other land use type.
Fuck.
So you could have your agriculture at the same time as preserving and capturing more and more carbon. And actually the most efficient of all of those ecosystems are the wetlands and peatlands, which cover less than 5% of the Earth's surface and can
Right,
capture
come
about 30% of that amount. So when all in combination, we can see that these ecosystems have an overwhelming potential to
come
capture
on.
this 300 gigatons. This powerful carbon drawdown solution is not just immense, but
Did
it's
I knock his
also
tail
one
off?
that
Yeah,
can engage
baby.
every
That's
single
crazy.
one of us, and must be done in combination with cuts to greenhouse gas emissions. But of course, they have to be done ecologically responsibly. Too many times, restoration projects fail because trees are restored in the wrong soils or in ecosystems without a microbial community that can support them. So we spend all of our time and
And we're
energy
done.
generating maps that can show land managers how to manage those ecosystems right. So they can zoom into their area of interest and say not only how many trees go there or which species of trees should go there, but you can even see what the soil microbial community is like to see if they support trees. And you can even calculate whether forests would have a warming or a cooling impact in different parts of the globe to really understand the ecological consequence of those actions. And even more importantly than that, is that these projects have to be socially responsible. Too many times restoration projects come and they buy up an area of land, excluding people from that land. Now that land is those people's livelihoods. Not only is that socially irresponsible, but it's also unsustainable because those people will come back and cut down that forest and use it for their livelihood subsequently. Restoration has to be in combination.
Oops. Fuck.
So all funding coming towards restoration projects can be funneled through that community so that they become connected to that project.
Oh,
On
they
top
straight
of
up
that,
took our shit.
They can benefit from the thousands of ecosystem
I did not realize
services,
that.
like food and medicine and clean air and water, that bring huge socioeconomic benefits when done correctly. All of those projects, those little dots that I showed you earlier, are doing this, working in combination with the local communities to restore ecosystems around the world. And they're having incredible social and economic consequences. And the best of them are doing so for as little as 30 cents a tree. And so this means
Oh man, everybody's
if
dying.
we were to restore our 1 trillion trees, if we were to maximize efficiency, we could do so for as little as $300 billion. That is nothing compared to the trillions of dollars we spend every year as a result of climate change. So now we genuinely do have a climate solution that can engage every single one of us through simple and tangible actions that have a positive impact, either by restoring ecosystems yourselves, and you can look at the maps to see exactly where and how, or simply donate. Click on one of these dots to donate to one of the incredible restoration
Damn
projects
it.
that are doing unbelievable work on our behalf.
Alright.
Or finally, just invest your money wisely, whether you're spending it or investing it. Focus on the organizations that have a positive environmental impact, and we can have tangible impacts on climate change. There's 8 billion of us on this planet. That gives us an unprecedented power for global action. But until now, climate action has always been about giving up the things we love. And while those commitments are incredibly important for cutting greenhouse gas emissions,
Oh, it's underneath me.
we
Crap.
now also have positive actions we can take, which make us feel good and get us involved in the fight. Which brings me to the final criticism. This all sounds fine, but it's just naive. We'll never restore the entire globe. Now this criticism may also be correct, but it's also entirely irrelevant. because this thinking doesn't help anything. Ultimately, this is just an excuse to do nothing. If we can't achieve 100%, let's not bother. This is the kind of thinking that got us in this place. If we achieved even 5% of our goals, the impacts for biodiversity and climate change would be incredible. And I can promise
See you, bitch.
we are going to exceed those efforts with the thousands of people restoring ecosystems around the world. I just hope the people saying it can't be done don't interrupt the incredible people that are already doing it. Overcoming this negative thinking, this depression around climate change, I think is one of our greatest remaining
Huge nut
challenges
chuck.
to get us all engaged. And to do this, I draw on the words of that
Huge nut chuck. I
Dr.
mean,
Heather
big
Jones,
beefer.
who said, just embrace the challenge. Not only are we more likely to succeed, but we will literally be enjoying the process. We may be the first society facing the real threat of climate change, but that necessarily means we're the first society that has a chance to save the world against it. Thank you
Oh
very much.
shit. Did we get him? That was an easy kill. I can't believe I didn't hit him. Or it should have been easy is what I meant.
Our men are capturing the position. We've captured the control point.
Excuse me. Oh shit. Something just hit us. I think we're going down. Yeah, fuck it. We're going down.
Our forces are taking the control point.
Alright, how should we handle this? I guess like this? Ah, damn it. Holy shit.
The control point is ours.
Oh, hey there. Whoops. Oh, he sees me. Oh, damn it. That sucks. I should have just planted a thing. What a fool. What an absolute nincompoop. Damn. Oops. Damn!
The enemy is rushing the control point.
Bitch. No! That's so tragic. Damn! You're kidding! Alright. I can't believe that dude is just sitting there and nobody got him. It's pretty funny. Eh.
The enemy's trying to capture our control point.
Oh, I should have known that wouldn't work. Damn, none of these dudes have what I need.
The enemy is taking the control point. The enemy has captured the control point. Our forces are in position.
Oh, there's a fucking plane up. Where?
The enemy's trying to capture our control point.
Nope, there he is. Fuck. Oh, I'm so bad. I was looking at my phone. Oh, hope we can get him.
Capture the position. Together.
Whoops. Oops. Alright, I guess we can move it.
The enemy is rushing the control point. The enemy is trying to take the control point. Our team started capturing a control point. The enemy has started capturing the control point. The enemy is taking the control point. Our boys are capturing the position. We've captured the position.
Oh gosh. I need to lock in, bruh. Keep checking my phone.
Our forces are taking the control point. Our forces are in position. The enemy has captured the position.
Oh my god. I want to pace around, but I'm streaming. The group chat is it's too funny right now. Oh, okay. I wish we could see what BR we're in, because I would like to know. These guys are actually giving us a run for our money.
We've captured the control point.
Damn, I didn't even see him. Alright, let's get a rally up.
The enemy is trying to take the control point.
Damn it! The fucking H-bar. I cannot live with the H-bar.
He's trying to capture our control point.
I'm never gonna get my dailies. Oh shit. They're lurking.
We've lost the control point.
Ooh, we lost F and we're about to lose E now. That's not good. Why are we throwing all of a sudden? We were doing pretty good. Oh, yep, there we go.
We lost this battle.
All that just to get a huge L.
Retreat.
Okie dokie. I'm one short? You're shitting me. I didn't realize I did not accomplish that. You're shitting me. Alright, well I'm gonna do that off stream, fuck it. See y'all.